I think when I first started running, I was sort of thinking, what would people think of me? I'm running so slow. I look a mess. Do not give a monkey's what anyone else thinks. It does not matter. And I've learned that from a few friends who they say it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It only matters to you what you're doing. So I just say give it a go. If you've got a friend you can share it with, I think that makes it easier. Because to be honest, walking and talking, before you know it, you've walked a kilometre, 2 kilometres. And it doesn't have to be 10 kilometres, 100, it can be a kilometre.
Hello and welcome. Kate Champion here. I'm excited to share this heartfelt conversation with you today. If you're feeling a bit stuck, need some inspiration or a nudge to try something new, then this may be the episode for you. Nick Fellows started running in 2020 as a way to cope with the COVID lockdown. At the time, he was 58 years old. Since then, Nick has qualified and completed for 7 major marathons and several other endurance events. Today, Nick shares a bit about his personal story, his desire to maintain a healthy lifestyle well into his later years, and the profound impact running has had on his mental and physical health. Nick and I talk about doing hard things, pushing through setbacks, and the importance of motivation and discipline. Then Nick gives us lots of practical tips and strategies to help us with things like setting up personal goals and targets, finding inspiration, and how we can begin to redefine ourselves later in life. I love this conversation with Nick. He is truly thriving. His energy and zest for life is contagious, and he's determined to live to 100. You know, this is what this show is all about, inspiring and supporting you to live a longer, stronger, more intentional life. As you listen today, please subscribe, leave a review, or share the show with a friend. And remember, you can now find this episode on YouTube. YouTube is a great place to subscribe, leave your questions, comments, and suggestions for topics and future guests. Finally, remember to check out the show notes for all the links, books, and other helpful resources. Whether you're listening for the first time or a regular, please know I appreciate you, I support you, and I thank you so much for listening today. Okay, my friends, here's Nick. Hello, Nick. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm just back from it's 8:20 here in Melbourne, just back from a 20k run actually this morning. I had to get up at 5 o'clock because we're in the middle of a heat wave here. It's going to be, in your temperature, it's going to be 100 degrees today. So there's no way you can run in 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So you have to get out really early. So I was out very early this morning.
That is a beautiful thing. And I'm really happy to connect. So I want to give the Facebook group that I connected with you on a shout out. And if I remember correctly, it's called the Epic Retirement Club. And that is the amazing Facebook group. And then that's where I saw your story and reached out. And I just want to hear all about you and, your adventures. And, you've run 7 marathons since 2021, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I want to hear about you and your story and your journey. Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Well, look, it started probably just a little bit before COVID. So a bit before COVID, actually, I've always been a walker, never a runner. I've always been a walker and never really been a sports person at all, actually. Not even spectating sport particularly. And I did this charity walk. It was a 100-kilometer walk, and I think it was in 2019. And it was with Oxfam, and basically you walk for 100 kilometers non-stop. I think it took us 27 hours. It was with a group of people from work. It was pretty tough, to be honest, but it was great fun. And then on the back of that, a friend asked me if I'd like to go to Nepal with them a couple of months after. And I did a trek around Nepal. We went 5,500 meters high, which is in feet is about 16,000 feet. It's very high. It's about the height of Everest Base Camp, really loved it. And I knew that I was good at walking, and I really enjoyed that trip. But it really did test me. I got altitude sickness. I was quite unwell, actually. Really had pushed myself to the limit. When I came back just a little bit before COVID, that would have been about September 2019, I sort of thought, maybe I should just try running. I don't know why, I just had it as a little thought. And I thought I'll just do 1 or 2 Ks. And that was sort of within my realm. I got my kids to buy me a pair of running shoes for that Christmas. And I went out on the day after Christmas, on Boxing Day, for a little run, and it was terrible. I could only run like a couple of 100 meters, and then I had to walk and run. And so I did that for sort of a few months. And then I was running for a couple of months, and then COVID hit. And in Melbourne, we had, it's a bit of a sort of a nanny. I don't want to be too critical. It's a little bit of a nanny state. So we went into this massive lockdown. And in fact, through 2020 and a little bit of 2021, we actually had 245 days of lockdown. And what lockdown basically meant was you were not allowed out of your house, and unless for 4 or 5 reasons, and they were going to the doctors, going to doing food shopping, if you had an essential job, going to work, and the last one was going out and doing exercise. And you were allowed out for an hour to within 5 Ks of where you lived, to do exercise. So I sort of thought, well, I've just started running. I'll do a little bit of running because I can do that. With work, we all started working from home. And it just occurred to me that really I should, and in the company I worked for, there were about 100 employees. And I thought, I should encourage other people, because I was in a senior role, I should encourage people to exercise. And it was all over the news that exercise is one thing you should do in lockdown for mental and physical health. So I set up a program where about 20 people out of the 100, 20 or so people out of the 100 did various things, which could be running, walking, home gym type activities.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, I set up a smaller group of 2 or 3 people to do a run in a local park. I have to say it was more than 5 Ks from where I lived. And every time I drove to this park, I was scared the police were going to pull me over. And they never were going to. But, I was trying to be compliant with the law. And from that group, we started running, and we ran 4 Ks around this. It's called the Tan in Melbourne, around this park. And we did it every Friday, 7 a.m. religiously. And then from that, I just sort of thought, I realized I'm quite sort of light, and I probably have a little bit of natural skill, that I thought, well, I'll take up running. I started running a bit more than 5 Ks, 5, 10, 15, 20 Ks. So when lockdown finished, I sort of thought, I'm going to enter a marathon. And I've got no idea what I'm doing. I was 58, no idea what I'm doing, but I'll just do it. Why not? I started reading a few books, and I've got a pile of books here, and I've actually 1, 2, 3, 4. There's about 15 books I've read on running, and I realised that there's a big mindset piece to it. And one of the first books I read was actually called Born to Run by Christopher McDonald, which is a brilliant, if you're new to running or just want an uplifting book, it's really motivating. He's an American author. In fact, most of the best running books are by American writers. And I just found it really inspiring, and it just really motivated for me to have a go. So my first marathon it was terrible. It was tough. I was sort of in tears. None of it was really pleasant. My time was awful, etc., etc. But what I learned through doing it was really, and I got injured, quite badly injured. Everything hurt. So I went and saw a physio stroke chiro who someone recommended I talked to, who happened to be a coach. And he basically just set me on a path, which is the path I'm still on. So the lesson I learned from it was, when you when you sort of jump into things that you don't know anything about, it's really good to talk to people that know something about it, that really are more learned, and they really can tell you how to do things a lot better. And really, this guy was very inexpensive. I got all the physio work and all the rest of it, as well as the coaching. And from that individual, who I still now see once a month, I learned a hell of a lot, and he just put me on the right path. And I think there's a lesson there. And I think particularly as people, it's lessons around work or financial planning. Speak to people that know more about the subject than you do, because there's always someone that knows a lot more than you do. And I found that I can improve in leaps and bounds, mentally as well as physically, in my running journey. Anyway, through Luke Nelson, who's my coach, I sort of decided that I would enter a number of marathons. So I did a couple of it. I did 2 or 3 in Australia, and then I decided to look further afield, and I entered the lotteries in 2022. I entered the lottery for the Berlin and the London marathons that were happening in 2023. Now, those lotteries, the chance of getting in, they say, is about 4 to 5%. And I entered both of them, and I fortunately got into both of them first time. Some people, it takes 20 years before they get in, but I actually got in first time. And London being my hometown, I live in Australia, but I'm from London. I've been here 20 years. I absolutely loved it. I took the opportunity to visit friends and family and just have a bit of a trip there. Berlin, which I had been to, again, is just absolutely fantastic. And both those marathons I did quite well in. So I'd gone from my first marathon being sort of 5 hours to London being 3 hours 35, Berlin a little bit slower than that. And to put it in perspective, for my age, probably 4 to 5 hours is probably where you would be. So anything better than 4 hours is probably good. And those times enabled me to time qualify for the Boston Marathon and the Chicago Marathons, which were this year. So people try to get in Boston, and if you're in your 20s, you have to run below like 3 hours. It's really, really, really difficult to get into Boston. But as you get older, the times are a bit more forgiving. They allow you to go a bit slower. So I think my Boston qualifying time I was allowed to be below 3 hours 45, and I had 3 hours 35. So I had enough time to get in. Chicago was a similar sort of time. And look, I have to say, my circumstances I've had in my life, probably about 10 years ago, I've had 2 back operations. I've got an ankle that's kept together with a metal plate and 11 screws. I probably need a 3rd back operation. So I'm not probably an A grade athlete. I do have some things that hold me back. So I was really, really pleased to get into Boston, really, really pleased to get into Chicago.
Impressive.
I gave it my all. I have to say, I ran Chicago injured. I think I ran Boston not at my top. And I didn't achieve my targets at all. I think I was about 3 hours 50, something like that. And actually, I was trying to get a New York qualifying time, and I didn't achieve it, actually. So I've got to rethink my plans for New York and Tokyo as well. But that said, what you have to do is you have targets, and you just have to adapt. So even though there was a little bit of disappointment in what I achieved, I still achieved those marathons, and I still had met a lot of good people. I still came out of it feeling really good about myself. I didn't look at the negative and go, well, you didn't do as well as in London. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's just part of my journey. And I can't remember the guy's name, but there was a guy that ran the London Marathon, and he's in his 70s, and he beat 3 hours. And 3 hours is still my target. I just know that I've got to adapt a little, and I have, I've got another 10 years to get there. I won't give up on that target, but I have learned that you do have to not beat yourself up, adapt, realize that targets change, or there's another way to skin a cat. So I will achieve the 3 hours. It just might take me more hard work and more pain, and more time than I originally sort of thought. So I've got to a position where I've run those marathons. I've got one lined up for next April. I will have one lined up for next September. Not quite sure where that will be. But what I do know is when I completed those marathons, the mindset after it must be the dopamine hit or whatever. You do feel mentally like $1 million, even if your body doesn't quite feel the same. But you recover, your body recovers. It easily recovers. That doesn't worry me.
Wow. That
I
is
hope
impressive.
that was not too many words to
No,
explain that
no, but
journey.
that's impressive. And you started, I just want to recap a couple of things. You did your first marathon and you were 58, right? And
Correct.
you've been a walker, but you hadn't been a runner, right? So you've
Never
done
run.
7 major marathons in that time, right? So what is that, 3 years, 4 years?
3.5 years, 3 years.
Okay, 3 years, right? That is massive. And you've had all these injuries in the past, right? Like you said, you've got this back stuff and an ankle stuff. I mean, that's pretty impressive, Nick. I mean,
You do.
what's the, I don't know, you talked about lessons learned, right? In the beginning, like you did that first marathon, it was really hard. You really learned some lessons. What are a couple of the lessons that you've really learned that you might share with listeners if they're thinking, wow, if he can do it, well, I'm going to give it a try.
Yeah, I would actually say, sorry, and I don't want to sound braggy, but then probably is going to, there is actually an ultra marathon in there as well somewhere. I did that I did that a couple of months before the London Marathon. That was 58 kilometers and took me 7 hours to run. And one of the guys I was running with, who probably was 20 years younger than me, was in tears. And we had to walk together the last couple of Ks. So lessons learned. Look, I think the lessons learned is hard things are hard. And it's not easy. I see people, there's always someone better than you. I see when I'm running, like someone when I ran, I overtake other people, but lots of people overtake me as well. So you can't be the best. You can only be the best version of yourself. I think the lessons learned are, I've always had targets in life, whether that be personal, work, running. You have a target which might be a certain distance or a certain pace or getting into the London Marathon or whatever it is. And you have to have targets because you have to know what you're aiming for. And the target is really important and you have to be super focused on it. But things happen and you have to adapt. So I had a target going into the Chicago Marathon. I was going to smash 3 hours 30. I did 3 hours 50. I was injured really, and I was on painkillers in my training and my running. So I had to adapt. So when I was running, I have 3 targets. I have a gold and a silver and a bronze. And the gold is usually to beat a certain time. A silver is to maybe get a season's best or the best time I can get this year. And a bronze is normally just to finish. And if I finish, I think, well, I've got a bronze medal. And I think the same is true in life, relationships, your kids. The gold might be, to get a pay rise or to get a new job, or might be with your relationships to make things really work 100%. But again, they don't always. So you maybe have to adapt your targets and go, well, I'll get it to work, but it will take a longer period of time. I'm spending a fair bit of time. I live on my own. I don't live with my children. I spend a fair bit of time with my kids, and some of my goals are around them getting the best they can out of their lives. So getting back to lessons learned, you have targets, but you've also got to be realistic and you have to adapt yourself or your target. That's probably the major lesson. I think probably secondary to that is sort of, and it is related to it, but do be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up if you don't achieve things. In the same voice, be kind to other people. And I do think the more you give out, the more positive stuff you give out, the more positive stuff you'll get back from people. It's really quite fundamental. It's a bit sort of Buddhist-y in thought, but there's this whole thing about enlightenment. The more good you do, the more good will come to you. Definitely. Hold that door open, smile at that person. They don't need to be big things.
That's a beautiful message. I actually really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. But yeah, 100% behind you on that. Yeah. Yeah. You also mentioned mindset. So having these targets and then breaking them down. What else? What about the tough days? I mean, I have to imagine, right? You've got pain, right? You've got discomfort. You've got days where you don't want to get up and lace up, I guess. I don't know. What do you do to push through those hard times?
Yeah, I mean, when motivation isn't there. So most of running, I'd say 50% of the time, I'm really motivated. You want to get up, you want to get out. It's a nice sunny day, blah blah blah. When motivation fails, that's when discipline kicks in. So for me, anyway, that's for me. So I'm sort of on the off season at the moment, so I'm only running 5 days a week, but I normally run 6 days a week, and I have one day off. And then those 6 days, I would run 100 kilometers across 6 days. So, and on a Saturday, it could be 35 kilometers, which is basically 3.5 hours of running. And there are days you do not want to get out of bed. You do not want to do that. I'm not a teetotaler. I wouldn't say I drink a lot, and I try not to drink when I'm really heavy training. But I mean, I had lunch yesterday, had a few beers. I didn't want to go out this morning. Certainly didn't want to get up at 5 o'clock. It's really warm here. Didn't sleep well last night. I could have easily rolled over. That's when discipline kicks in. I know that I had to do a run. And so discipline absolutely kicks in. And when I ran, my legs didn't want to move. I was in pain. But you just have to do it. There's no option. And I know that every run, every incremental bit of work I do will make me better as a runner. So if I skip one run, it probably won't have a major impact. But if you skip one, then you'll skip two, then you'll skip three, then you'll skip four. So I just go, you have to go. So I have never missed a run ever, even with a hangover, even sick. So I have an app that's got my runs on it, and it's got green ticks, and I just do it. And even this morning, my legs were really hurting. It was painful. It was still quite hot at sort of 5:30, 6 this morning. I was sweltering. I noticed that everyone else that was running. And you just look at the positive. I'm lucky I live by the beach. I run along and I look out at the sea. I was a tad late this morning for this, so I would normally go and stand in the sea for half an hour and just look at the seagulls and the people, walking their dogs, and just look at the horizon. There's so many beautiful bits of nature around me, but I'm sure other people do as well. I've lived in deep suburbia where you're looking at housing and all the rest of it. There's always something beautiful to see, whether it's just the sun rising or birds, singing. And that's it for me. And I just keep sort of pushing. I know it's a bit like with work, and I'm sort of semi-retired, stroke fully retired now. But with work, if you do the incremental things, if you focus on the inputs, the outputs will look after themselves. I mean, one of the mistakes I made early on in running, I wanted to achieve a certain time, and I just thought I could go and do it. And then I realized that if you focus on the outputs, you've actually got to focus on the inputs. If you only focus on the outputs and not the inputs, you come to K35 or mile 23 and you can't do it. You physically cannot move your legs. So when the motivation's not there, the discipline kicks in. So that's the main thing for me. with running. And I think having a coach, and I've kept Luke on for 3 years now, I think, he holds me to account. And even though he always said to me, "You're the only runner I've got that does every run I ever set them," I know that if I didn't do a run, he wouldn't beat me up. But I sort of don't want to let him down either. I don't want to let myself down, and I don't want to let him down. I would also say I've got this friend who I run with, and he was a business coach for me initially, but we've struck up a friendship. He's in his 70s, and we race together. And you wouldn't think it. He doesn't look 70. He's got, I'm sure you won't mind me saying, he's got a mindset of a much younger person. He still works. He's totally healthy. And his attitude to running, he's not quite as fast as me. I think age probably has caught up with him a little bit. But we're running a race together. It's a twilight race, 10 kilometres down in the coast in Melbourne, about an hour out. He contacted me, he said, "Oh, let's go for a run. We'll probably go for a beer afterwards." And that people like that, it's not only the people that are the best, it's the people that have got the best mindset that I find really inspiring, that make me think, "Oh, I want to perform really well, or as best as be the best version of myself," to them as well. They hold me to account in a way.
Yeah. Kind of like a win-win, right? It's a win-win. So I'm hearing like this accountability, there's community, right? There's this sense that somebody else is counting on me, right? You're supporting them, they're supporting you. It's like magic.
Well, thank you. I mean, I don't see it like that. I just see it as getting up and going for a run, and and having fun. I mean, it is fun.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
painful, but fun.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's what I'm really enjoying your energy, because you look like you're really having fun, right? This is really like you're thriving, right? You're really enjoying this, you're really thriving. This is really enriching your life.
Well, it is absolutely. Thank you. I mean, what other reasons would you have? I mean, I'm sure people do have reasons, but to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, why would you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning when you're retired, when you actually have the whole day?
Yeah. And put your body through that. I mean, I get it. I'm a runner and a hiker, a backpacker. I know, I get it. It's like feet ache, your legs ache, you're tired, but you get up and do it anyway. It's really serving you. Yeah, yeah. So what about so we talked about mindset, we talked a little bit about kind of motivation, discipline. What about injuries, like overcoming injuries, again, getting through some of those setbacks, right? When maybe, like you said, you've had an injury through one of these marathons. How do you cope with that? How do you cope with that, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I think injuries could be, I mean, that's a really interesting question, actually. Injuries could be cause depression, I think, because you can't get out and you go, "Well, I can't get out." What I've done, probably shouldn't have done. To some extent, I've made the use of painkillers, which I really shouldn't have done. And really, all painkillers do is actually just they get you through. They don't get rid of the injury. But yeah, I've adapted my training. So I have had a couple of times where I've been injured. So what I've started doing is I do strength training as well. So
Okay.
that's about an hour, that's 2 sessions. And if you do strength training, that prevents you getting injured. It's supposed to. I also, about a month ago, I've actually started swimming. So I do about 2 kilometers a week. So that's 4 sessions of sort of 20 laps of a 25-meter pool. It's only 20 minutes a time. Swimming is actually quite good for injuries. It seems to get a lot of movement. And I'm probably avoiding answering the question, but I use everything like rollers, massage guns, every oil, massage, everything you can imagine. I also try to take care of my body. I go in the sea, which has got a high degree of magnesium, salt, which has got magnesium in it. I soak my feet in magnesium. I take a few supplements. Glucosamine is the main one, which is really good for your bones as you age.
Yeah.
But there have been times where I've been injured. So then what I've done is and again, talked to my coach, and I've adapted my training. So you do sort of low impact training. So you might go on a bike machine just to keep your quads and your calves going. I do suffer with back issues. I've got a little niggly back at the moment. So we have a product here called Deep Heat. It's basically, you put it on, it burns your skin. It absolutely stinks. But it basically, I can't remember, there is a term, but it does mask the pain a bit. But what I might do is I might just go for a run. Like this morning's run, I actually went a bit slower. I go for I run, I slow down my running. I wear more cushioned shoes. I just take harder on myself. I've got these super shoes that everyone has. They are quite unkind on your back, the carbon plated ones. So the faster you go, the faster shoes you wear, the more they put on the more stress they put on your back, particularly lower back. So I'd go for the slower shoes. I'd just run slower, and maybe do less time. But I usually do it in conjunction with talking to my coach. But I know really what he does is just reduce the load down. When I came back, so when I did the Boston Marathon, I actually had a 3-month holiday, and I went to the UK for 5 weeks. I did a race there with a group of English friends, and actually spent time hiking around the Lake District with my brother, and did a few things. Then I went to South America for 6 weeks. Went up, hiked up Machu Picchu, went to Bolivia, went to Argentina, went to Rio de Janeiro. Actually did a load of running around Rio de Janeiro, Copacabana Beach and all that. It was great. So when I came back, I was really unfit, and my training for Chicago, I had an accelerated training program, and I absolutely thrashed my body. I went from 0 to 100 Ks a week within a very short period of time. And at this age, it does put a lot of pressure on your body. So really, I caused the injury. But then really the discipline and mindset, I just went, I almost swore there. I'm going to go for this. And so I had an option about 3 or 4 weeks out from the marathon, and I did consider withdrawing, and I could have got my money back from the flight, and I could delayed it the following year. But I adapted. I just thought, nah, you just do it, just enjoy it, do your best, etc. But I knew it wasn't going to be fantastic. So to answer the question, injuries are a setback, and you do have to listen to your body. And that's the good thing about having Luke as my coach. He's a very seasoned runner. He's about early 40s. He's very accomplished. I think he's a bit of a sports psychologist as well. He works with some big name teams and that as well. And he goes through my injuries, and I've had a few MRIs and a few scans just to check there isn't anything wrong. And if it's not really that bad, we talk about how I can just run with that injury, and I just have to, can I put up with the pain? And then it's about, can you endure the pain? So since I've been back, I've been on no painkillers. So I take that as a major hit, a major tick.
Yeah.
But my pain level is probably 2 or 3 out of 10 when I'm running in my back. And then I just sort of measure. If it gets a little bit too much, I back off. And there's probably some listeners that are probably going to go in the way you should just totally stop. Well, I don't really want to. So, in a way, if you're a runner, you know your own body as well. And
that's right.
You know if you're doing damage, or if you know it's just a niggly thing. After this call, I'll be on the roller. I'll probably go to the pool. I'll do loads of things to try. I'll probably have a half a day of recovery to try and get it. And tomorrow's my rest day as well. So
okay,
that'll be fine.
The chances are you're listening today because, like me, you are passionate about creating a longer, stronger, more intentional life. Did you know there's a great way to take one more step towards that goal? By signing up for Living Big Mindfully's community news. Why sign up? Well, you'll get the convenience of receiving new podcast episodes delivered straight into your inbox. You'll be the first to hear about offers, retreats, and community events. For example, have you heard or attended our free virtual monthly mindfulness event? Plus, as a therapist and women's health advocate, I want to share all the amazing things I am learning, from the latest in muscle health to brain health to fitness and well-being, all things I incorporate into my everyday life. So basically, by signing up, you're getting all the tools, support, and encouragement you need to thrive, get, and stay stronger for longer. So how do you sign up? It's easy. Head over to katechampionauthor.com, click the community news link, and get connected today. Oh, and just so you know, it is completely free. We never share your information, and you can unsubscribe at any time. So please take this one step for yourself. Go to katechampionauthor.com and sign up today. I cannot wait to start sharing all this good stuff with you. Now, let's get back to the show.
Imagine there's a listener listening and they listening to our conversation, they're 55, a little bit later in life, and they want to get started, even with the walking, right? Even with the walking and then maybe a little bit running. How would you suggest somebody a little later in life, like you said, hasn't got any foundation of sports? How would you suggest they start to get started?
Well, I mean, that was a position I was in, actually, absolutely the position I was in. Well, I think the first thing is buy a pair of running shoes, and that's a commitment. It doesn't matter if you've got the gear. And I think when I first started running, I was sort of thinking, what would people think of me? I'm running so slow. I look a mess. I've got some friends who I've encouraged to run and who have run, who have maybe got a few more pounds on them than I have. And they were a bit sort of body conscious about, God, what am I going to look like? Sort of, I'm skinny. They maybe weren't quite so skinny. What am I going to look like trying to run? And I'm going to be sweaty and all the rest of it. Do not give a monkey's what anyone else thinks. It does not matter. And I've learned that from a few friends who they say, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It only matters to you what you're doing. So I just say, give it a go. If you've got a friend you can share it with, I think that makes it easier. Because to be honest, walking and talking, before you know it, you've walked a kilometre, 2 kilometres. And it doesn't have to be 10 kilometres, 100. It can be a kilometre. And then there's this rule of sort of 10% in running. 10% or 1% is different. Different people say different things. Don't increase it too much, but go 1K a day, and then increase it to maybe 2Ks. At that level, it's a bit difficult to do 10%. But when you start getting to 3 or 4Ks, just add 10%. Just add another block to your walk.
Mm-hmm.
There is, I think, some people, and I have experienced this myself, you can get bored. So if you're walking for 2 hours and it's just around the block, it can be boring. So pick decent routes, or pick someone you want to have a conversation with, or wear headphones, listen to a podcast, listen to a book. I listen to music always. Except races, I don't listen to anything. I want to talk to people and I want to hear what people have got to say, and I want to experience the crowds and all the rest of it. And I do have to say, America does really know how to put the crowds on. The Boston and Chicago marathons are brilliant for that. But yeah, don't be shy. Put your shoes on. There's hundreds, thousands, millions of other people that are doing it for the first time as well. Whether it's walking, whether it's running, and there's lots of programs on the internet, Couch to 5K, where and it's all free. They'll show you, and you do something. I think I started by walking for 1 minute, running 1 minute, walking 1 minute, running 1 minute, something like that. Actually, it might be walking 2 minutes, running 1 minute. But there's loads of programs. They get you. You feel a bit confident. You don't feel so self-conscious. I tell you, no one, and you do feel self-conscious. No one cares. No one driving past, walking by, gives a monkeys about you. They've got their own problems that they're dealing with, not you. They don't even see you. And the same is true when you're starting to run and you think, I'm sweaty and I look awful. No one cares. There are plenty of running groups for real novices and beginners, as well as more advanced. In Melbourne, there's literally hundreds of them. You can find them online. Also, just ask colleagues at work. I read this great story it's a Melbourne guy, and his name's, I'm just trying to find it, Tristan Miller. and he ran. It's called Run Like Crazy, and he ran 52 marathons in 52 weeks in 52 countries. He basically, and he got sponsored, and he's not, he's about a 4 hour, and he's probably was in his mid 30s as a 4 hour marathon runner, I think. Sorry if I've got that wrong, Tristan. He was a Melbourne guy. And basically, he had a drink. God, I hope this is in his book. He had a drink and drug problem. His life was a mess, and he was married. I think he might have had young kids. Anyway, he basically couldn't walk up the stairs. He had so much weight and all the rest of it. And a friend at work turned around to him and said, and I think he was probably going out drinking excessively. And his boss or a colleague at work said to him, why don't you come for a run with me? And he goes, well, I can't run. Look at me. I'm a mess. Anyway, he went for a very gentle jog with this guy who took him under his wing. And from that, he just got the bug, and he just got better and better and better to 3 or 4 years later, ran 52 marathons in 52 weeks. That's a lot of Ks. That's 40 Ks every week with recovery, and, he would have done warm up and all the rest of it. I found his story really inspiring. I read that near the beginning of my journey. I'd say there's probably another thing there. If you read about the subject, there's another guy, Tom Foreman. He's an American. I think he's a newsreader or something. He used to be a runner. He stopped running, and his daughter started running. And she said to him, Dad, I want you to run this race with me. And he goes, well, I haven't run for 20 years or whatever. Anyway, he started another running journey with her, and he went from zero to hero, and he was really inspired by his daughter, and it inspired him to put his shoes back on. But again, I found it if someone gave me that book, a really inspiring story. And that's for me where I've learned these lessons either verbally or in books from other people. And I think, Jesus, there's some people that really overcome difficult things to become really good, and their stories are really inspiring, which has helped me find my journey, which in a way is probably, if I'm honest, is probably helped define me as I've come to this period in my life where I was in a sort of C-suite job that came to an end as COVID hit, that I was looking for something else. My kids had all finished school and uni. So that part of life was over, and you're looking for another journey as you hit retirement. What do I want to be, and what do I want to do? And now when I run, I live in a sort of an apartment block, and people know me. I've been here about 3-4 years, and most people acknowledge me. They say, what marathon have you just run now, Nick? And when I'm out running, people shout my name, and I've sort of got, I wouldn't say, celebrity, that's not right, but people know me. And my friends, I don't want to sound big-headed, probably should cut this bit out, to be perfectly honest, but, I get positive vibes from friends and other people, acknowledgement, which certainly gives you a feeling of well-being, that probably a bit of validation, which, I'm not necessarily searching for, but does feel nice, if I'm brutally honest.
It helps, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It helps.
And I think there is that grey spot when you go into retirement about, well, what's my life? What is my life? It's been driving at 100 miles an hour with career and kids and trying to pay off the mortgage and all those things. And then all of a sudden you hit sort of retirement, and it sort of becomes a lot easier, really. And purpose is a bit, you go, well, what is my purpose? And relationships can be part of that purpose, but I feel that for me, I'm bigger than a relationship. A relationship is part of life, but it's like, what do I want to achieve? If I think of next year, and again, I'm not trying to be braggy, but next year I've got a friend of mine rang me up, said, I want to go and see this band. Do you want to come with me? I go, yeah, I'd love to. Where are they playing? He goes, London. I go, okay, I'm there with you. He's in Melbourne, he's actually in Adelaide, and we're taking in a football game. So there's a band I really want to see in June. In fact, when I was in America, I saw them as well. So I'll go and see that band. I'm going to Bali for a week with a bunch of guys. What could possibly go wrong five middle-aged men going to Bali. But I suppose it's you need some sort of purpose, I think, in life,
Do
and
you
running
do?
really has given me that. If it wasn't there, if I was so injured that I couldn't run, yeah, then I'd have to think again, what would that purpose be? It would probably be in the field of something about how I can give back to the community, probably the local community I live in, which is actually a route I do intend to go down. I mean, my background is finance, so there is stuff I can offer these people. But just getting back to it, I think when you hit retirement, there is a thought of what am I actually going to do with my time? Because I personally have this belief that I will live to sort of 100. I'm very lucky with my health, and I think running definitely helps that. Since I've done running, I've focused on nutrition. I've focused on really trying to keep away from alcohol and any bad things in life. So recovery and all those things. It's a byproduct of running, but it's definitely made me feel better. So I'm not vegetarian. I focus though on having a really balanced diet, quality food, as much
Yeah.
vegetables as I can, etc., etc. So I've ended up having as a byproduct some healthy lifestyle choices as well. Because the
Yeah,
running determines, because I can't run unless I eat good food and unless
that's
I
right.
sleep. If I
Yeah, I
drink
mean, it's all connected,
cans,
right? It's all connected, right? It is
it
all
is.
right. The mind, the body, the food, the sleep, the hydration, it's all connected. Yeah, yeah, which is kind of so cool. Yeah. So before I ask you that final sage advice question, is anything else you want to share or add about your journey or purpose or anything else you want to add?
No, no, I don't think so.
You sure?
Do you want some more content?
No, no, I'm just no, no, no. I'm just, are you sure? Is there anything else you want to kind of add or share that doesn't have to be absolutely not? Absolutely not.
Look, I suppose just a couple of things about me. I'm a big reader, and I do find getting whether fiction or non-fiction. I probably read more non-fiction, but I think reading gives you a lot of really good influences, whether positive or negative. And negative information can give you positive experiences as well. I belong to a book group called the Tough Guy Book Group. We meet once a month in a pub. I don't particularly drink in that pub, but then probably the age range is probably 40 to 65. And you don't really have to have even read the book, but again, when I hit sort of retirement, I did seek out sort of groups of like-minded individuals, and I've experimented with a few, and I made a few good friends. So I do think literature, reading, learning, or however you want to take your information in, whether it's podcasts, but other people's stories, I think there's always something to learn. And don't I try not to be dismissive, whether the individual is. So I learn from my kids all the time. I learn so much from them. They know what's going on a lot more than I do, certainly around technology and stuff like that. But I think we can, as older individuals, I think we can be a bit dismissive of younger people or less experienced. Just because people are less experienced doesn't mean they've got less to offer. And in fact, naivety or
Mm,
lack of experience and questioning really can help big
yeah, I
time.
love that. I love that.
And I think I have a questioning personality, and I think it is good to question. But through some of these groups, I've joined a couple of running groups, and that I've met just decent human beings. And I think some of my own probably probably discriminatory behaviour I've really questioned though in
Mm,
recent times, and I think again that's a product of age and just how things have changed. And I've questioned a lot of things about myself and learned a lot about myself. And basically now it's question everything, don't prejudge anything, don't judge anyone. And really, I've found that I've just learned so much more. But that's only been the last couple of years. I know
yeah,
that I've probably got a history of probably behavior that probably wasn't really the best, to be perfectly honest. But I'm happy to
I love
admit
that.
that.
I love that. And I really appreciate you being so honest. I think if we were all honest, we'd all say the same thing, right? And so I really appreciate your kind of honesty and your openness, the open-mindedness, the willing to learn, the willing to continue to grow, right? And just keep going, keep showing up and keep going. That's an amazing message. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah,
I'm still trying
absolutely.
to work out what I want to do when I grow up.
That's right. Me too. And I love the living to 100 years because that is all, I mean, me too. I just want to live to 100. And that's all about, the books, the podcast. It's all about, inspiring and supporting people to live longer, stronger, more intentional lives. And that is everything that this conversation brings to the table today. So thank you, Nick.
No,
Yeah.
you're welcome. I mean, I do believe there's two things you need to have a long life. I think you need health and you need wealth. You don't need to be the richest person, but you need to have enough money in your pocket to be able to do the things you want to do. So if someone says, "Do you want to come away with me for this trip?" you need to sort of have enough money to do that. So, and there are ways to do that. And this isn't a financial podcast, I know, but there are ways to do that. And probably you need to take risk when you're younger. It's a bit harder when you're older, but there are ways to do that. And there are people that are more learned than me. And the other one is health. There's no point getting to 100 with all the money in the world, but being really unhealthy. I do believe you need both. You can't have one without the other. You could probably not. You could probably have to be really healthy with not quite so much money. But I suppose my family background, my parents were very working class. I got to university very lucky through hard work, their guidance. And had a sort of an okay career. So I'm sort of okay on the sort of the money side, but I do appreciate not everyone is as lucky as I have been. And you have to find your own journey really for wealth, I think.
Yeah, I love that. So my last question is like, if you were to give listeners some stage advice, right, about living intentionally, what would that be? I mean, we've covered so much today, but what would that kind of last piece of advice be?
Yeah, I think I've probably covered it, but there are two things that I think are really important. One is to have a target. So whatever that is, whether that's to live to 100, eat a nice meal tonight, tell your partner you love them, whatever it is, have a target. And targets can change. So you can have a target which might be to eat a good meal tonight. However, something might happen that you don't get to the shops and buy it, and you have to make something from the fridge and you can't do it. So have a target, but it's got to be realistic, and don't beat yourself up if you don't achieve it. But you've got to have a target in life, whatever that is. And it might be a small target. So I've got a target of I want to beat 3 hours. I know that's going to take probably 10 years. So to get that, I've got to beat 3:30, then I've got to beat 3:25, 3:20, and I will do it, and I will beat 3 hours, and I'll talk to you again in 10 years' time when I've done that. And I know that I will achieve that, and I know that there'll be curves along the way, and it won't be a straight line, because my PB was over a year ago. 3:35 was in London, which was March 2023. So I've got a bit of work to. I've got a marathon in April, and I will beat 3:35. I absolutely can. So I'm planning now the micro steps over the next 6 months to beat it. So have a target, which basically means you've got to have a plan to get that target. And that plan can adapt because, you might be ill or things may happen along the way. You just have to deal with it. And if the target has to change, the target has to change. Don't beat yourself up. So that's probably my number one ethos in life. I do have a secondary one, which is sort of be kind to other people and be kind to yourself. And the kinder you are to other people, it's like the saying, the more times you try things, the luckier you will be. So the more doors you open for people, the more times you buy a coffee for a stranger or help a homeless person on the street, the more chance of something good will happen to you. And I do believe I've been one of those people that have been incredibly lucky in life. I've done some silly things, and I think I've come pretty much unscathed, which might be a mindset thing. I mean, I have had 2 back operations. I had my ankle I broke through. It was my own fault. I could have broken both ankles. Luckily, I only broke one, and it does impede my running, and I do get pain. I just have remedies to help with it. But just, yeah, be kind. There's no, and I don't think I was in a past life, but cyclists and runners have a battle on many of the runs I do. I used to, get in the way, take the line. Now I just get out of the way. And you know what? I feel happier for it. But, they're micro things, but just be kinder to other people and they'll be kind to you.
Yeah. I think the world needs more of that right now, like more of this kindness. I think it's a huge message. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think we're not in great times, to be honest, the world over, really. But I suppose in history, at least we weren't around in the Second World War, which was a terrible time, and the Vietnam War for America. Those were terrible times.
Yeah. So the be kind message is a big one. So I appreciate that, Nick. So if people have questions or they want to reach out, where can they find you?
So I am on Facebook, Nick Peters, and I am on Strava as Nick Fellows.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure you can put the details somewhere if you want to. And I'm
Yeah.
more than happy. Strava is sort of my tool of choice. I'm very happy to connect with other runners across the world, and on Facebook as well. I'm happy to talk to people. I had someone reach out to me who's just written a book. Actually, they want me to review it for them. It was very nice, actually, this morning. But yeah, I'm very happy. And anyone that listens to this that's in Melbourne, I am more than happy to go on a run with. And it does not matter how far you run, how fast or slow you run. It doesn't matter any of that stuff. Because I do social runs as well. I do on a social run on a Friday, and it's just I don't try to achieve anything other than connecting with the other people I run with. So because there is a community thing with running. So anyone's in Melbourne, I'm in Port Melbourne, but I run in the centre, various other places. Always happy to connect with people.
Brilliant. Thank you. I will put those links in the show notes for sure. And I just wish you all the best. We are going to connect in 10 years. I want to see that target completed and continue to see you kind of thrive and share this beautiful message. So Nick, thank you so much today.
You're welcome. Thank you. Take care. Have a good weekend.
You too.
See ya.
Thank you so much for listening today. I really appreciate you and your time. Remember that I do love to hear from listeners, so connect with me at katechampionauthor.com. Grab your free hiking guide, share your favorite episode with a friend, and subscribe to the show. Until next time. Hey, me again. Just a reminder, this podcast should not be considered professional advice. It's also not a substitute for mental, physical, or any other healthcare-related treatment. For any questions about your condition and/or concerns, please contact a fully licensed healthcare professional. Thank you.